Hi there, I'm Mark Phillips, and I want to welcome you to this new series, The Game of Life and How to Win It. You know, I'm really excited to launch this series to share more of the spiritual and metaphysical truths that we all need in order to have more great experiences, in order to have the circumstances we want to have in life, and consciously create our lives. If you are familiar with some of my other work, Enhancing Human Experience podcast, or some of my books, you already know that I'm a big fan of sharing spiritual and metaphysical knowledge, right? And tuning into the creative power that is within us, harnessing it and focusing it to create more of the experiences we want to have in life. And this series is going to be an extension of a lot of the stuff that I talk about on those platforms. But the goal with this series is to be super informal and very short. Really short nuggets of information and insight and knowledge that you can use right away in order to start tuning up your experiences and having more of the health, wealth, success, and prosperity and abundance that you want, that we all want. And so expect really short episodes and very informal nature of this series. As you can probably tell, if you're familiar with Florence Scovel Shinn's work, the title for this series was largely influenced by her book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. You know, many people have talked about this before. Life is like a game, right? And to get better at the game, we've got to practice, we've got to train, we've got to share best practices for playing that game. That's the whole crux of the series, and even the crux of what I do on my other stuff. You know, the platform that I really spring all my projects off of is based on the idea that like Pierre Desjardins talked about, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we have access to an incredible amount of spiritual energy, creative spiritual energy that is always flowing through us. We have access to that spiritual energy to help us to consciously create our lives in the way that we want. Now, the challenge, of course, is to create from a place of what we want as opposed to a place of what we don't want, right? We can become fixated and focus our attention on situations that we don't want, and what happens? We exacerbate those situations, right? We compound those situations. Our practice and our goal is to create from a higher state of being, a higher state of consciousness, and to continually train ourselves to focus that creative power on creating experiences that we want to have as opposed to situations and experiences we don't want to have. And you know, but basically this is a spiritual game we're playing, and sharing this best practice is going to help us all play that game better. So big influence to Florence Scovel Shinn for the title there. You know, Florence Scovel Shinn was an interesting person. Of course, she was very influential in the New Thought movement in the early 1900s, and a lot of your present day transformational gurus, metaphysician and spirituality people, they can trace their origins, or at least largely influenced by the work of Scovel Shinn. You know, you people like Louise Hay, Tosha Silver, Doreen Virtue, a lot of people have roots to Scovel Shinn's work because she produced a lot of content. This is another one, The Power of Your Spoken Word, and another little book that I'm going to read a short passage from called The Magic Path of Intuition. So if you haven't picked up some of her work, I really encourage you to do so. She was big on prescribing, in her words, like prescribing her clients with spoken word cures, right? And also thought cures, right? Of tuning up the way they're speaking and the way they're thinking in order to then have experiences come about that they really want, as opposed to feeding that energy into experiences that they don't want. So a little bit about Scovel Shinn and her work, but again, really influential in my life and also for this series. Before we wrap up this first episode, which I'm really glad you tuned in for, I want to read you just a short passage from the back of her book, The Magic Path of Intuition, and here's that passage. I say in The Game of Life and How to Play It that health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression are the square of life. See ye first the fourth dimension, and the perfect plan of your life will come to pass. You will fill the place that you can fill and no one else can fill. I really love that sentence right there because it speaks to this notion that we all have a role to play, and no one can play your role, right? No one can contribute to this flowering of the human experience what you can contribute. And so coming online yourself and having the spiritual awakening in your own self is not only beneficial for you, but beneficial for the human race as a whole. Let me continue here. She says, righteous desires of the heart, no matter how extravagant or seemingly unattainable, will be added unto you. And she closes this with Matthew 7:7, the famous phrase from the Bible that we're probably all familiar with. I love this phrase myself. I love this little passage. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. So that's just a short passage from her book, The Magic Path of Intuition, and a little bit about the new series here that I'm really excited to launch, Game of Life and How to Win It. And I hope you'll tune in for more episodes. Again, they're going to be super short, hopefully super insightful and helpful to you on your own journey. I know a lot of these things that I picked up on my journey have helped me immensely, and I have a feeling they'll do the same for you. So I want to thank you for tuning into this first episode. Until next time, all the best, health, wealth, and success.